second to adopt tonight's agenda?
I make a motion, we adopt tonight's agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of May 20, 2025 minutes. I would need a motion and a second for approval.
I don't think I have. We'll have them.
I provided them last meeting, I'm sorry, I
Okay.
did not reprint them.
Okay.
I
There's so
couldn't
many
remember.
pages to
All
it,
right.
I just,
It's the one from the special call meeting for the solar farm, and we will have to actually prepare
Oh, yeah.
updates.
I assume that's what I said, what it said.
Okay, so we're not gonna approve it if we don't have it. All right.
No,
Resolution.
wait a minute.
you had them to review at your first meeting in June. Was there any corrections or updates to those?
Okay.
I know that there's one line that it doesn't make a hill of beans worth of difference, but it was a question that I asked that doesn't even sound like, it's not even formed as a question, and it doesn't make sense. I don't know exactly what I said. It was whenever he was talking about the questions, the page of questions, and what I was trying to ask, what I thought I said was something like, I was expecting to see the answers to the questions, but that's not how it's presented in here, and I can't, of course, right now, I can't put my hand on it, but I don't know exactly what I said, but I know that the sentence that's there is not accurate.
Because that's what you said. You said, look, I said we got questions, but I would like to have the answer.
Yeah,
And that was in regards to the questions that they asked at the
at the
meetings,
they
the public
provide
meetings.
the public meetings that they had.
I'll
So,
go back and review.
yeah, I don't know exactly what it was, but the sentence that's there, I just knew. That sentence doesn't even make sense.
And the translation.
That translation was strange.
Yes.
In
Yes.
that, whatever she used
Yeah,
to.
It was
Misty.
very,
Yeah,
there was a
because
lot that I
yeah,
had to go
right.
back and correct
Yeah.
completely, so I may have overlooked that.
And I
I tried to catch every bit of it.
Yeah, I looked at that too, and it didn't make any more sense than what you had down, and I thought, well, I don't know exactly what I said, but I know what the intent was of my question. But like I say, it doesn't make any difference. It just makes me sound like I didn't have a form of
Well, it does need
sentence.
to be correct, so I will go back and
Okay.
pull that
Thank
back out.
And you were talking to Harrison, wasn't you?
I was.
Yes.
Yes.
Any others, the new ones are wrong.
That was the only thing that I saw. Everything that was of significance appeared correct
Is
and
it?
worded correctly.
It's not this, is it? Thank you for sharing the questions, but I was hoping I was listening to you.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's on page 11.
It is on page 11.
Thank you.
I knew that I had seen it
That's
too,
exactly.
but, yeah. Thank you for sharing the questions with us, but I was hoping I was listening to you.
I think it should have said, I was hoping to see the answers.
Right,
to
yeah.
the questions.
I'll go back and review it.
But other than that, I didn't see, like I say, all the important parts to me looked accurate.
Okay, yeah.
Anyone else? Hayden? Dina?
No, I'm good.
I guess I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Motion also carries. Resolution, the tentative award for bar screen screw conveyor replacement project, Heather Miller with LaBella. Hey, Heather.
Good evening, everyone. Apologize I could not be at the last meeting. I was having some wavy eye vision. I had to have my husband come pick me up from the office because I couldn't drive today. So, Yeah, so we are here. I understand that I provided an updated memo of the status of our projects. Did not change much from what was provided for you for the meeting at the beginning of June, other than I have been in contact with Wooten in regards to our I&I project, because we are waiting on them to finish the sanitary sewer mapping that they were doing as part of the wastewater AIA project. My last communication with them, they expected to have all the information to begin to process it by the middle of this month. I reached out this morning to see if there's any update on that, and I have not heard back from them as to where they are in that process. We do have our subcontractor who will be doing the cleaning and smoke testing and CCTV. We do have them lined up to begin the middle of July, as long as we get that mapping from Wooten, because they will be incorporating all of their information that they find onto that map. So, you know, we cleaned this section. This is what we found when we CCTV. This is some areas of concern. That will all go onto that digital map. So the goal is to not duplicate what Wooten is doing with the AIA grant with what we are doing with the I&I grant, to make both sets of funds go as far as possible. So, in regards to the bar screen and screw conveyor replacement project, again, there's a little bit of background on this. It's kind of the same that I have said in the past, and I'm not going to go over and read that all over again. But again, bids were taken on January 9th. It was over, the bids that were received were over the funding amount. We did provide two options to DWI. One was, can the town of Denton buy the bar screen themselves and put it in, or is there the option to transfer some funds from one project to another in order to fund the overage? DWI was not very receptive at all to the ask that Denton purchase the equipment and install it themselves. My feeling is that was not part of the funding request. The funding request was for the traditional bid construction portion, not a town buy the equipment and put it in themselves. So DWI does not deviate at all from what is in that funding request. And so they check very closely to make sure what you're doing with the project throughout is what you intended to do with the funds and with the project as given to them in that funding application. So the way to request funds to be transferred from one project to another is to submit a funding transfer request letter from the town's authorized representative. So the funding transfer request letter was signed and submitted to DWI, and it has been approved. And so a revised funding offer was sent to the town. It has been signed and submitted back to DWI. So those funds have been transferred. $122,000 from the I&I project to the bar screen screw conveyor. That now gives us the funds needed in order to tentatively award the project to J.S. Heron Company. And so in front of you is the resolution of tentative award. Once that is awarded, this document, along with the project bid information sheet and submittals, will be submitted to DWI for their approval. And that information includes tabulation of all the bids received, copies of the bids and bid bonds from the low bidder, the resolution of tentative award, the engineer's recommendation letter, proof of advertisement, and the MBE, WBE documents that are required. All of those will be submitted to DWI for their approval. Once they are approved, then the notice of award, the actual notice of award, can be given to the contractor, and then they can begin construction. I have been in contact with the contractor, and they are still willing and able and excited to do the project.
Why, you know, his bid is so much lower than everybody else's. Is there any particular reason for that? I mean, it's way out of line, in my opinion.
I had a number of people in our office, and I have talked to the low bid or the supplier that they have. And so a lot of it has to do with the equipment is the equipment cost. A lot of it has to do with, you know, how much they pay their people to do the work, because a lot of it is just installation. There is not much additional material costs with it other than the equipment itself. And so my understanding, I don't, maybe I do have it here. Don't remember off the top of my head how much they may have put down for, you know, mobilization and all those type of things, but I don't find it to be very skewed or exceptionally low.
Okay.
My biggest thought with the variable in the cost has to do with just the workers and the labor to put it in.
Just wondering.
No, it's a valid concern. Yeah. And as for some of the other, we have seen in other bids that they've put on that they're normally on the higher end, regardless of what the project is. So,
Even though we are tentatively awarding the project, I'm looking over the letter on page 2. The paragraph starts on February 27th, and then it says that we received a phone call from Ms. Malloy on April 1st, informed that since the project is being funded through funds earmarked from the State Fiscal Recovery Fund, it's not eligible for additional funding. So how are we gonna get it paid for if we're not eligible for additional funding?
so there was, in talking to one of the inspectors, she had suggested that there was a portal where you could request additional funding for projects. We initially went through that process. However, funds that were earmarked funds from the state budget are not eligible for those ARPA additional funds through this portal. And so we are funding the additional costs needed by transferring money from the I&I project to this project. Throughout that, the inspector who suggested we go through this process apologized and said, and even the head of the drinking water unit stated that the information that went out to those working at DWI, as well as what is on the online application, is not clear as to what projects and what funding sources were eligible for additional funds.
Okay. Okay, that clears that up. Thank you.
When do you foresee that we'll be able to, construction can begin on this once approved project? This year?
Yes. I will definitely say that, yes.
What month?
If I get the approval, if the resolution is approved tonight and I can get a copy of that, I will submit everything yet this week. And hopefully within 30 to 45 days. And I will also let everybody in DWI that I have contact with, which at this point in time with this project has been 4 different people, know that it is coming and that we need them to do their due diligence and review this without taking as much time as they have been taking on everything. But again, the 30 to 45 days is just my estimate based upon what I know they have done in the past when they have been on a schedule.
You said just wait to hear back from Wooten the middle of this month, but the middle of this month's gone, so we're now.
Correct, and I have not heard anything. I reached back out today to find out what the status. It was the middle of this month where they should have the information from their surveyor where they can begin manipulating it into the map that's needed. Yeah, the exact wording was, should be able to start pulling everything together by mid-month based on discussions with our survey team. That was from Wooten. And as soon as I receive any correspondence back from Wooten, I can let Ms. Jenkins know, to give a better idea of when Wooten will be done with their portion of it, so we can begin.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we go ahead and tentatively resolution, tentatively.
Because you didn't
Do we have a
want
second?
more paperwork.
J.S. Herring Company for $164,000.
Second
Any further discussion on this issue? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. I do not need to read this, do I? At this time, okay.
Okay, yeah, and I will get it in again. I will get it in this week. Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Table from June the 2nd, 2025, public hearing for consideration of annual budget for the fiscal year 25 through 26. Would that need to be reopened at this time?
No, it's still open.
Still open?
We didn't
Still
close it.
top.
You guys received a copy of the revised budget. But I'm not updated one. In reviewing the information, I just went back through and did a line item search for everything that is included in each line item budget, and just to see if we are projected to have those items still continue or not. And then also, in looking at everything, making sure there are a few things that will move around, as I said, the difference in posting something between where I put something in a budget and where Paula may feel like it goes, or the department heads that it goes when it's posted to that particular account. In doing so, just made, changes. The revenues were basically what they are, the big expenditures. The biggest thing that made a difference, instead of doing that developmental pay in July, we did that in January, so that took 6 months of that increase with 3% off. It is a budget that has a 5% increase across the board to all staff. And then expenses were met based on the request of each department. There was not, after I did the basic cuts from the payroll, there's not a lot of cuts that were made across the board, as you can see. As far as requests that were made, there was not even major taken out from the department's request. Okay, questions that you guys have after reviewing it, I'll try to answer them.
You have the figures tonight on how much was holdovers?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
You have the figures tonight on how much was holdovers, like sidewalk and paving?
Not a total figure for, year end, like what we would roll over.
No, what we're going over from, yeah, I guess, because you just appropriated fund balance that was
So,
last year's paving, last year's sidewalks, right?
right, and I've sent that out by email, and I did not print that information, but there was, the rollover for the power bill, which I believe is $130,000, because we're receiving 70 from them this year. That makes, their budget expense item at $200,000, and that is in, public works line, expense line, 1055, 730, 73, I'm sorry, 1055, 550, 73, which would put them at 200,000. That 130 of that is rollover, The sidewalk and paving, is $100,000, and that will be a rollover from this year. And plus, in the past, we've stated that $100,000 move forward so that we can do pavings and sidewalks, and that's been an established amount. We had increased it a couple years ago in order to accomplish some more paving. The only other two items that were listed in the appropriation funds was the vehicle for the police department, it was just a little over 58,000, and then the only additional to make the budget balance was about 41,000. So the other items are rollover.
You had to print it out, I did.
I know, I didn't print it either.
Here.
I've got it broken out on my papers here. As I did say in the email, our biggest stressors are our payroll. It is our biggest asset. We do, have really good employees, but we are always up against the county and trying to, across the county, let's say, trying to maintain our staff in every department. And one of the major departments is the police department. I mentioned in my email Thursday that, the sheriff's office is increasing with pay. Thomasville just raised their BLET minimum, and for us to even meet their minimum for BLET and the start is about 18% that we would need to increase that.
You still got the loan in here for $500,000, I assume that's the new town hall?
Yes, as instructed by the board.
And on the revenues, I know you got $100,000 extra in water revenues and 80 or something in sewer revenue.
We did a 15% increase on water rates based on what we've been told for the AMI meters, that we should see at least a 30%, but I didn't feel that was where we wanted to jump to. Now, it could possibly be 30%, but if we look at 15, we're hitting it in the middle, and if we gain more, then we've done what we wanted.
How much is that gonna affect people's water bills?
15 to 30% is what we've been told.
So their monthly bills go up $13 to $15 or more.
It depends. I mean, across the board on a person who uses the minimum, it won't affect them at all. But the person who uses, if they use, additional 1,000 gallons a month, it's $643 for sewer, $643 for water. So additional $12 for that additional $12.50, or right at $13 for an additional 1,000 gallons.
And that's just the difference in the meters.
It's just the difference in the meters.
It's just the reading, if it turns out to be.
Right, and
Correct.
it's because it is an accurate account of usage. And that's what everyone, Borderline and all the other companies that presented to us shared with us, is that we're just charging for the water that's being used. And over the years, as the meters have gotten older and slowed down, we've lost that revenue.
They're not gonna understand that though.
Well, I understand that, but that was the whole purpose in gaining these AMI meters.
I'm not saying that buying them, getting them what the right move, but time will tell if we
Yeah,
have
have
to.
we, I know there was the
So-
issue with some of them not being
Yeah,
billed
this month will
correctly.
be the
This
first
month will
month.
be the time we'll know.
Yes, July 1st will be their first bill, and we'll have those additional readings that were not pulled in, that were prior to the full rollout. So that'll be on there. We will have calls. We have had a lot of calls this month that said, hey, this is not my normal. So that was nice to see, and we've made notes of everyone who called or mentioned it when they come in, and just try to explain to them that the meters switched over mid-process, and that would be, they would see that on the next, but we are, if someone, if they were only billed, say, for 700 gallons, you are supposed to have 1,000 gallon minimum. So we're making sure that that credit is applied as well for that 300 gallons, so that we're not overcharging residents for their usage.
Have the meters detected any leaks?
We've had several, every morning.
Genuine?
Yes, genuine
Great.
leaks. So every morning it flags something that seems either as a burst or as a continual usage throughout the night. So staff's looking at them and monitoring them, reaching out to the residents, and we've also asked for people to please update their information. If we don't have a good phone number, you know, this information is useless to us because we can't get a hold of it. We can tag a door, but then it's a couple of days later before you.
How do you detect that? If Scotty's got a big water usage going on, does it show up on a computer?
So
Or do you have to randomly look for it?
So like today, I had a call from someone, it's a plumber on Jones Street, was looking at a customer's water line. They wanted to know why they didn't have a leak detector as they used to have. And I said, well, what address? And give me just a second. I pulled it up and it told me, like starting at this particular date, it started using 25 gallons of water every hour. And it increased from 25 to 55 to the time they cut it off. So it was about a 2-day period that they saw it. Well, it didn't flag us because 25 gallons isn't a lot, but over a 3 to 4 day period, then it flagged and said, there may be a problem here. So it
That's
did.
nice for
there is-
you all.
That is awesome.
When you can
There is
see
a
it.
report to pull.
Yeah, and it's gonna help with, you know, our water loss ratio. It's gonna help with the customers not having those larger bills because